Hello, everyone. Um, my name's Joe Desjardins. I'm going to make a podcast today. It's going to be part video and part just audio. Um, but um, I'm a psychic and I have visions of a lot of things. I have visions of the future. I have visions of where ancient places are hidden. I also have visions about terrorist attacks before they happen. And maybe another time I'll show you on my Twitter. I've predicted some things, including both attempts on Trump's life already. Well, I guess there's been three so far, but I've predicted two or three of them. Um, so I wrote this document, and I'm just going to read it to you. So, um, first off, I was rewatching some of Ken's interviews online. So Ken is Ken Leth. He's the guy I wrote my book about. Um, and he's predicting that the United States is going to go into a civil war, and it's basically first Trump will be assassinated, then Trump's supporters will bomb CNN, and then an army will form out west. It'll form a north-south line, basically like starting at the Mississippi, and it's just going to fight its way east, and it's going to be a much worse civil war than the first one. There will be mass graves. And the tragedy is none of it needs to happen because there's only one building in the South that we really all need to focus on. And I think I know which building that is, and I'll get into that another time. It's the Air Force Global Strike Command in Louisiana. It has to do with nuclear bombs, and uh, as you'll see in some of my other podcasts that I'll be uploading, I felt nukes go off one day, and yeah, it's a really crazy story. But let me keep talking about Trump. Um, so recently, a couple months ago, I was rewatching some of Ken's old interviews online. Ken Leth, again, the same guy I'm talking about, and he um, he's done about 10 interviews online stating his predictions for the future, and each one, you get a couple different details. So I was rewatching some of the old ones. And one of them I found this crucial detail that I had missed about Trump's death. It's in part two of Ken Leth's interview with the Passion Harvest podcast on YouTube. And if you start at the 21st minute and listen for a few minutes, you'll hear what I'm about to say. But um, the interesting thing is it was published only 2 days before the 2020 election. And it's impressive because Ken predicted exactly how Trump encouraged people to fight through his Twitter account on January 6th, 2021. Um, and then on top of that, right after he talks about that, he says that he didn't see Trump doing that once, but twice. And the second time that Trump does, something similar to what he did on January 6th, 2021, the second time Trump does that, Trump is going to Ken said get struck by something and end up in the hospital and eventually pass away. So with all the assassination attempts on him already, I think it's pretty clear he's probably going to get shot. Because we were Ken speculated it might have been a heart attack in one of his other podcasts, but um, I personally definitely think Trump's going to get shot, and I'll get into that in a sec. But um, okay, so I had this dream back in October of this year, and it was my sister telling me in like a fucked up joking sort of way, but serious, that she was going to vote for Obama in this election. And like she asked me, "Who are you voting for?" I'm voting for Obama because the point was that this election, even though Trump already won the election, it's actually going to be so messed up to the point where people are going to wonder if we can actually have Obama come back and be president. And so the only thing that really makes sense to me is that this could only happen if Trump gets assassinated. And, the longer J.D. Vance and Trump are actually serving as president and vice president, then the more solidified J.D. Vance is going to be as the new president if Trump were to get assassinated. So that's why I think Trump's literally going to get assassinated before Inauguration Day. And that's not even 2 months away from when I'm recording this. So another detail that I got, and this one's pretty obvious, is that there's going to be extreme protests in Washington, D.C., but it's going to be extreme to the point where there's literally soldiers marching in the street with assault rifles to maintain order. Using tear gas. They're going to be using tear gas. And again, people are going to be wondering if Obama can come back and be president. So also, I've had some very clear premonitions about exactly how Trump's going to be assassinated. I'm sure a lot of you will be worried about it. You might even want to have me arrested if I get these predictions right. But honestly, you'll soon see that I've predicted so many things now that I have proof that I'm a real psychic. So another thing I just want to quickly say is when Trump gets assassinated, the next part of the prophecy is that CNN is going to be bombed, and this could be, anywhere from probably 2 to 4 years away. That's what I would guess. But the thing is, CNN's going to know that someone's going to bomb them because the FBI is going to warn them. So that makes me think that it's actually going to be a suicide bombing, because that's the only way these terrorists would succeed, is if they suicide CNN. So, and imagine that happening on live TV. So, my book was originally titled Before Another Civil War because our country is headed into a civil war. Again, that's Ken Leth's main prediction. So now on to the plot. Okay, so the following are my own premonitions. The first thing I have a strong feeling about is that there will be 3 to 4 young kids involved in Trump's assassination. And I think they're going to have a strong connection to Thomas Matthew Crooks, the guy who shot Trump in the ear. What actually came to me was that the assassins will live with their grandparents, and Crooks did in fact live with his grandparents. So that's why I thought the coming assassins, will be connected to Thomas Crooks in some way. I'm not sure how. So I believe that maybe 2 of them will be stalking Trump as his plane arrives somewhere in the Northeast, not far from D.C. So that's what Ken says, is that when Trump dies, it'll be in the Northeast and also not far from D.C. I also think, maybe it could be in D.C. I really don't know. But so I'm saying I think 2 of these assassins will be in the airport waiting for Trump when his plane arrives somewhere in the Northeast, not far from D.C. And again, at or after a rally. So in one of Ken's podcasts, he says that it'll be right after a rally, but in the video that I talked about, the Passion Harvest podcast, he said it was at a rally. I think he said at a rally or right immediately after. So I don't know, but the point is, Trump's going to be encouraging fighting just the same way he did on January 6th, 2021, which kind of surprised me because I was originally, when I heard Ken's prediction on Passion Harvest podcast, I was predicting that Trump would lose the election and then attempt another coup and then get shot. Now that he won the election, it just surprised me that he would do something similar to what he did on January 6th. So I'm really not sure what he's going to do, but knowing Trump, he does those kind of things all the time. So the other thing I was saying was that the snipers would be in a tall building, maybe 10-story building. But then I actually realized that this had to do with something else. It had to do with the 2017 Vegas shooting at a Jason Aldean concert, and that's a lot to explain, so I'm going to leave that out of this podcast. But I'm a little confused because, I was getting two premonitions about this building. One was that the snipers would be on the roof, and the other one would be that they were in like a tall floor, a high floor, and the Vegas shooter was on a high floor. So that makes me wonder if maybe the actual shooters for Trump's assassination, maybe they'll be on the roof, because I was getting two different premonitions about this and I didn't know what to make of it. So maybe they still will be on a tall building, on a roof. Because the other thing, I was getting pretty clear premonitions that they're going to be using sniper rifles. There's going to be two kids with one sniper each. Okay. There will be one sniper on the left side of the building and one on the right. The one on the left will shoot first for 40 seconds, followed by the one on the right for 20. Trump will get shot in his upper vertebrae, in his neck is what I mean. Possibly his upper left thigh and one of his feet, and also possibly his right hand. And one more key detail that comes from Ken is that Trump will be clutching his heart when he gets shot. Another couple details I have is Trump will bounce off his right knee and land on his chest. And again, another detail Ken says is that Trump won't die immediately. He'll go to the hospital, and he'll go to the hospital first, and eventually he'll pass away. That's what Ken said. Okay, now I want to talk to you about something related to Nostradamus. I just read all three books of the trilogy of Dolores Cannon's Conversations with Nostradamus. So she regresses someone using hypnosis and contacts him to get more clarity about what all of his quatrains mean, because he wrote almost 1,000 of these quatrains. It just means 4 lines of almost like poetry, but he's predicting the future. So they try to make sense of what he's saying. And so in volume 2, Dolores Cannon asks for more clarity about century 4, quatrain 13. So Nostradamus, his predictions are arranged in centuries. It just means groups of 100. It doesn't actually mean by the century. So we're talking about volume 2, century 4, quatrain 13. So volume 2 is available online to download for free, a PDF version if you want to read it. So I'm going to read their conversation. Okay, so this is the guy under hypnosis. He says, here's the quatrains. So, news of the greater loss reported. The report will astonish the army. Troops united against the revolted. The double phalanx will abandon the great one. Okay, so what the guy under hypnosis says is this quatrain creates a picture of a civil war that will occur in America's future. So again, this book was published in the 90s. It will involve fundamentalist Christians, New Age sects, and all kinds of religious persecution. He says there is religious persecution in his day, and you will witness it again in the late 20th century. I didn't like the sound of that. They put in parentheses. So Nostradamus, part of the reason he was so cryptic is because of the Inquisition of his time. He didn't want people to know what he really meant by his predictions. So then they ask, what is the meaning of the word phalanx? And again, the guy under hypnosis, he responds, a phalanx is a column of soldiers. These Christians will see themselves as soldiers of Christ when actually they are soldiers of their own exorbitant lust to rape, rule, and rob. And then he says, he doesn't want to talk anymore. Something is happening to his magic circle. He needs to leave this place. So they're talking about Nostradamus doesn't want to talk. And then they asked, did it disturb him to see all these things? And the response is, well, he's not used to it. He's not used to us. You see, this is one of the first times we've come through. He sees the vision in his mirror, and he has his wand that he points with. I know this all sounds stupid, but I'm going to keep reading. So that's how I'm communicating with him, by being in the circle with him. But his spell is over, and he says, it's over, you have to leave. And then they respond, so that's all he wants to handle at this time, and he responds, he's been writing in the scroll and he's very intrigued, but he's ambivalent. He wants us to leave. He's calling, in the name of Jehovah Elohim, I ask you spirits to go back to your place. So that was the end of Nostradamus predicting a second civil war.
Hey guys, so you can see here, this is Conversations with Nostradamus by Dolores Cannon, Volume 2, page 230. So, yeah, here you can see Century 4, 13. For some reason the PDF messed up the 13, but it's in chapter 23. But here's where you can read everything that I said, where it talks about the phalanx right here, and the Christian soldiers right there. And then he just asked them to leave right here. And that's pretty much it. So again, you can find this. It's easy to find online.
So I thought it was weird because the American Civil War, it started on April 12th, 1861, and this is Century 4, Quatrain 13. So, I feel it would have been more impressive if Nostradamus had made it Century 4, Quatrain 12, because then we would have seen that he predicted the first Civil War, so we would have known that there's going to be a second Civil War. So that's what I thought. Is there a reason why it's one off? Is there anything more to this than that? And so I'm going to propose my theory. And first, let me show you something jaw-dropping. So Nostradamus used the term phalanx to describe a second civil war in the U.S. And, the energy of that really struck me quite quickly. I thought it was astute of him because, as you read in my last chapter, none of this second civil war really needs to happen. So I was talking about my book, but if you haven't seen the movie 300, then you may not understand. So from Wikipedia, here's a quote. The plot of 300 there's a movie called 300. The plot revolves around King Leonidas, who leads 300 Spartans into battle against the Persian god king Xerxes and his invading army of more than 300,000 soldiers. As the battle rages, Queen Gorgo attempts to rally support in Sparta for her husband. So Queen Gorgo is played by Lena Headey, Xerxes, Rodrigo Santoro, and King Leonidas is played by Gerard Butler. And I thought that was interesting that the hero of the movie is played by a guy with the last name Butler because, of course, Trump got shot in the ear in Butler. So the next thing to click is this. We're talking about Century 4, Quatrain 13, and Trump getting shot in Butler was on July 13th, 7/13. Those are 300 apart. 7/13 minus 4/13 is 300. This movie is literally called 300 because I think it's about 300 Spartans against 300,000 soldiers. But so anyway, you can read on Wikipedia that the Spartans use a formation called the phalanx formation, which is basically like the point of an arrow, and they go into a pinch point so that the Xerxes army can only come at them a few at a time, and somehow they end up beating the odds. So what Nostradamus is explaining when Dolores Cannon contacts him is that these Christians will see themselves as soldiers of Christ when actually they're soldiers of their own exorbitant lust to rape, rule, and rob. So I couldn't be more clear on that point. That's what I'm saying. That's even very similar to what Ken Leth was saying. The Civil War is mainly due to churches in the South that are the type of enormous churches with one leader basically being a messiah and constantly asking for money all the time while they fly around in their private jets. The very same churches that brainwash the masses into thinking Donald Trump is a man of Christ. Yes, I do not like Trump. But but that doesn't mean I'm part of the plot to assassinate him. Okay, now I'll go on a little rant really quick. So I know what many of you are thinking. So if you're so smart, why don't you tell us what your political views are then? And all I want to say is sometimes inaction is action. Like you won't like my views. I'll give you one example. If you want to talk about abortion, I don't have strong views on the subject. I see the value in both sides' arguments. But my and Nostradamus' point is that the Christians fighting this war to come, the Civil War, in the name of, say, an issue like abortion, which they feel so strongly about, is just a ploy so that they can rape, rule, and rob. But many of the men themselves may not even be consciously aware of it, of what they're doing, because they have been brainwashed for so long. I actually mean that. This is about the South, the good old South. I don't really know what to call it, but with their accents and stuff. What kind of accent is that? I don't even know, but their drawl. Yeah, this is about the drawl. That's what the whole thing's about. So all I was saying is abortion is an issue over killing other humans. War is an issue over killing other humans, yet these men will happily do one but not the other because they've seen movies like 300 and TV shows like Game of Thrones, which is also with Lena Headey, who's also in the movie 300, and they think war is glorious. So now I want to move on a little bit. So consider the names of these incidents. So John Wilkes Booth shot Abraham Lincoln in a booth. That's weird. Thomas Matthew Crooks shot Trump in the ear, so he's a crook. And a crook is also a device in music that apparently alters the key of the sound. So a crook is a device that affects your ears, and Thomas Crook shot Trump in the ear. So there's more to this than that as well. So another interview that Ken Leth did, Ken Leth, it's spelled L-E-T-H, but it's Leth. It was with host Alex Ferrari on his podcast, Next Level Soul Podcast, and it just so happened to be episode 137. So 137 is just like 713. And, again, Trump was shot on the ear on 713. And, this podcast, it's not even a video podcast. You only listen to it with your ears. Trump got shot in the ear. And also the episode came out on October 27th, 2022. October 27th on a normal year is literally the 300th day of the year. Another connection to 300. It's also 4 days before Halloween, of course, but so here's another thing. So only days before the election, I realized that all of the following are anagrams for Thomas Matthew Crooks's full name. Okay, here we go. Charms to soothe, work at home scam, a shot to the arm. So that's weird. It's arm, not ear. SAT chromosome. That's interesting because, he gets made fun of because he looks like such a nerd and all that. Scathe of the Worm. That's a dragon from J.R.R. Tolkien. You can spell Thomas Shooter. You can spell Shoot the Works. You can spell Smooth Cat's Ear. So that's something with an ear. You can spell a storm to come. Literally, that's what it spells. That's because our country's going into a fucking crazy civil war with mass graves, and none of it needs to happen. People want you to go out and kill people and destroy this country. That's what the bad people want you to do, because they want to destroy America, because America is the home of freedom. You can also spell SWAT the crooks, took the cross to West Coast. That's interesting because, again, one of Ken Leth's predictions is that after Trump gets shot and then they bomb CNN, then the army will form out west. There will be an army from the west, just like in the movie Civil War, and they're gonna fight their way east. And you can also spell Atom Smasher, Crass Tattoo, Hamas Rocket, At What Cost, Chaos Earth, Choker Shot. You can literally spell Choker Shot and Earth Shock. So, um, the interesting thing about the a shot to the arm anagram is that on July 13th, he Crooks shot the arm of a hydraulic lift holding speakers, which spewed fluid on the crowd. So he shot the arm of a hydraulic lift holding speakers. Trump, of course, was the speaker, so it's kind of like saying he shot the speaker. Um, Atom Smasher, I think, is important because again, I think that the bad building that Ken Leth, the truly evil building that Ken Leth talks about, that is the one causing all the chaos in our country. The one that's in Ken says it's Louisiana or Arkansas, and I think it's the Global Strike Command Air Force, whatever it's called, in Shreveport, Louisiana, because I actually think nukes are going to be used in 2029, and that's going to be part of the reason people fight the Civil War. But it's really all people in that building because, well, I won't get into it now, but I just think Atom Smasher is not a coincidence. Um, so Smooth Cat's Ear being an anagram is weird because that's actually a plant. It's an herb. It's called Hypocaris glabra. That's the scientific word for it. And an anagram using those letters, you can literally spell police arg, like AAARG arg, like attacking police. I don't know. I thought that was strange. And then the final thing I wanted to talk about was his name, Thomas Crooks' name, spells work at home scam. And I realized that, well, I had my premonition that the people who assassinate Trump are going to be young kids, probably connected to Thomas Crooks. And then, like 1 or 2 months after that, is when I realized his name spells work at home scam. And that's really interesting because, I don't want to make conspiracy theories or anything, but his parents were both social workers. His mom apparently works from home. And it just made me wonder if maybe they are, like, maybe even his parents are part of this plot. Um,
Okay, guys, now I wanted to show you something else. So, anyone here ever seen Shutter Island? So, I connect with that movie a lot because basically everyone in my life has accused me of being schizophrenic. Um, so, if you don't remember, one of the climaxes of the movie, it's something about the law of four and who is patient 67. So, if you look that up on YouTube, I'm sure you can find a clip of it, but it's when Leonardo DiCaprio, he goes into the lighthouse, and that's where he finds out that he really is delusional, and he made up this whole story. He literally took the letters from him and his wife's name, and he made anagrams of them. So I think the fake names, yeah, if you see here, Edward Daniels and Rachel Solando, so that's his name as a detective, and he's looking for Rachel Solando. And spoiler alert, it turns out to be him and his wife. But really, what it spells, Edward Daniels spells Andrew Latus, and Rachel Solando spells uh, Chanal. Her last name was Chanal. I can't remember what her first name was, but um, the point is, it's about anagrams. Like even Shutter Island is an anagram for truths and lies, and also truths and denials. Um, oh, Dolores Chanel. That was his wife's real name. Um, so I combined both of these names. So I took Edward Daniels and Rachel Solando, and you could do it with Andrew Latis and Dolores Chenal because again, they have the exact same letters. Um, I combined both of the names, um, and you can see it literally spells Donald's Halloween Scare. It also spells World Seasonal Calendar, another thing about Halloween. Um, but so this movie, if you look it up, it literally came out on February 19th, 2010. February 19th, 2024 was President's Day. It's not on the same year every single day, but on 2024 it fell on President's Day. So that's another reason why I think Trump is going to be shot before Inauguration Day and maybe even before the end of this year. Um, Trump, he was also just on the Joe Rogan podcast, and guess what episode number he was? 2219. Okay, so you also see here you can spell dead world leaders with those letters. Um, you can spell colossal disorder, which if you look that up, that's a something about splitting your brain. I think it's similar to a lobotomy where they split your brain, but it's a different part of the brain. And if you watch Shutter Island at the end of the movie, again, spoiler alert, he gets a lobotomy. Um, so you also can spell Dallas Old Sandwich Road. Um, and I thought that was weird, so I looked it up. And Old Sandwich Road, it was the second road ever built in the United States, because it was built in Plymouth, Mass by the Pilgrims. And of course, the Pilgrims, the Mayflower, what are they known for? Thanksgiving. And Thanksgiving this year is on November 28th. Thanksgiving, uh, when JFK was shot, was on November 28th. JFK got shot on November 22nd, 1963, 6 days before Thanksgiving. Um, you see, you can also spell Dallas dandelion, which is like pushing, pushing up daisies. Um, so JFK got shot in Dallas, so that's another key. Um, you can spell Dallas Donald Caesar. JFK got shot in Dallas. Caesar got assassinated, and Donald Trump is going to be assassinated. You can spell Rhode Island area codes. That's weird because the area code is 401, um, which is like April Fool's Day. And I'm not trying to be mean, but I feel like Trump is the fool here because if he really was paying attention, he would know better. Um, it's also weird because Shutter Island is on an island, and we're talking about Rhode Island. Um, okay, so then the last thing, you can spell Dallas Chaos Wonderland. You can also spell Lonsdale, Rhode Island. Lonsdale is in Lincoln, Rhode Island. So Lincoln, again, got assassinated. He was also part of the Civil War. And my prediction is that Trump's going to die and it's going to lead to a civil war in this country. I also wanted to show you guys something else really quick. So Trump nominated Pam Bondi as his attorney general. You see, this is 5 days ago. You can see the date down here. Sorry, it's November 27th. So that was on November 22nd when he nominated her. And her last name is Bondi, like Bond. And so on November 22nd, 1963, that was when JFK was shot. Her last name is like Bond. So I wondered if there's anything more to this. And here's her Wikipedia page. You can see she married a guy named Scott Fitzgerald. Okay, so I was wondering, is there anything about The Great Gatsby that might connect to this? And if you go to the 2013 film again with Leonardo DiCaprio, we were just talking about Shutter Island. Um, you can scroll down to the cast, and right here. It says Richard Carter played Herzog, Gatsby's butler. So Butler, Trump got shot in Butler, and if you click on it, Richard Carter died on July 13th, 2019. The July 13th was again when Trump got shot in Butler. Um, Finally, I'll show you a picture so you can actually. Leonardo DiCaprio was born on November 11th, 1974. And if you take the letters from his name, you can actually spell real world champion with all the letters. Well, I don't think all the letters, but most of them. Um,
Hi guys, so I also just realized it spells Leo. It spells Leo, real world champion. That's what his name spells, Leonardo DiCaprio. And the last two remaining letters were D and I, but I just thought that was interesting. And the other thing I forgot to mention is that I think the two shooters who shoot Trump will commit suicide immediately after they shoot him. And this last rant that I have coming up, I'm sorry about. I know it's confusing, but yeah, thank you. So the last piece of information I think might be accurate is that the rally I keep speaking of will start at 3 p.m. and Trump will be shot around 6 p.m. in the ambulance by 6:30 p.m. And again, if there really is a flight after that rally at 3, then it seems unlikely that these two events would occur in the exact same day. So, I mean, I don't know how quickly logistics work for presidents, but it seems really quick for me. So, um, I also like to say it's a little confusing to me because, if Trump were repeating what he did on January 6th at another rally, now 4 years later, uh, that would mean it would be close to D.C. where he does this. That's what I would think. So it's confusing because, again, I had a premonition that um, about him flying back to the Northeast and having stalkers waiting for him at the airport, presumably being shot, very soon after that, like maybe that day or the next couple days. And so I'm saying that since both the rally he holds and when he gets shot shortly after leaving the airport would be both in the Northeast, it confuses me since why would he fly such a short distance? Maybe he would, or maybe when he does encourage people to fight at a rally, it won't be in the Northeast. So like maybe he'll encourage people to fight at a rally and then he'll fly back to the Northeast where he has, uh, two stalkers waiting for him at the airport, and that's where. So he's going to get shot in the Northeast, not far from D.C., but maybe at the rally where he's encouraging people to do crazy things. Sorry for all the long wordedness, but I think you see what I'm saying. Maybe that won't be in the Northeast.